Now to your questions. How do I address my teens' difficult behaviors without hurting their self-esteem or shaming them?
That's a great question. I get that a lot. So what you want to do is you want to start with that validation, right? So you want to start by finding out what might be going on for them, because usually things don't happen in isolation. They usually happen for a reason. So being able to sometimes calm yourself down first, because, especially if it's something embarrassing and is out in the world, or they've done some very big behaviors, being able to hear them first so that then they can open up to you and tell you, well, you know what, I was trying to be, this is a friend of mine. Yeah, I'm trying to make friends with this group of people, and I know they're not great and they influence me in a bad way. Maybe they don't know, but I don't have a lot of friends. And so this is why I ended up doing that, was I was trying to make friends. So really being able to hear that and saying, okay, so we're still going to have to figure out what to do, and we'll have to figure out the consequence. And let's figure out what's going on underneath that. Really kind of being able to say, we're going to work this out together can really be helpful. And knowing that, again, your thoughts and feelings are valid and they're accepted, whatever your feeling is. The actions are the ones that we really have to figure out how to do it in a different way. It can be really hard, of course.
Next question is somewhat similar. How do you respond when the child insists the negative messages are quantifiably true?
Okay, so really, they're really believing it. So something like they're really believing that. See, my report card shows that I'm not doing well, or
Yes.
I'm getting in trouble all the time. Okay, yeah, no, absolutely. That's where the reframing is. And really the sitting with them and saying, I get why you think that way. I understand why you're thinking that way. And the fact of the matter is, there are strategies that we can do to make it better. Even if it's true right now, we can work on making it better. Something that might be true here, but right now, that doesn't mean it has to be true forever. And that it doesn't, we have to kind of move forward and look about what we can do to do. And that's where it's kind of finding those cheerleading and like, look what you did with this. Remember when you couldn't tie your shoes, or remember when you weren't able to do math, whatever it is. And then you solved those math problems and you got good grades. This is what we're going to do, is we're going to work to do it. And right now, that's what it looks like. But you might have to sit with their emotions for a little bit before they're ready to go into that problem solving mode.
Okay. We have another question. How can neurodivergent parents overcome their own lack of confidence to go on and help build their children's confidence?
I work with a lot of neurodivergent parents with neurodivergent children. And sometimes, I don't know if a lot of the parents that are on this call or listen to this, sometimes you only find out that you might have ADHD or autism or another neurodivergent presentation because your child gets diagnosed with it. And so then you're kind of having to overcome the stigma or the shame or all of the negative messages you internalized. So it's a lot for a parent to hold. So I do think that can be very challenging. And so being able to, I always recommend getting your own support, whether it's therapy or reading or anything like that, or talking to friends, so that you can work on your self-esteem and your own feelings of shame and go forward. It can also be very powerful. You can talk with your child and say, you know what, I didn't realize this. We didn't talk about ADHD when I was younger. And so now I'm learning. So I'm learning with you so we can kind of do better together. And if you have a job and you're successful, then saying like, look, I have ADHD and I got here. It was hard to get here because I had to do all of these things because I didn't know I had ADHD and I had to compensate in my own ways. I want it to be easier for you. I want to start more easily with you. That's one really important way. The other piece, and this I find is important, especially in therapy, is sometimes these ideas that you're given it as a parent to help your ADHD child. Oh, structure your child, be more consistent, use this behavior chart, that behavior chart. That can be hard for the neurodivergent parent to do. And so then it can be you're both struggling. It's hard to stay consistent. and both of you go into the shame spiral. So I often work with those parents and say, okay, so what can we do that's enough, that can provide some behavioral consistency, which is very important, and structure, but is doable. So you're feeling like you can be successful and your child can be successful. And then the third thing I would say is really, and this is important, not just for ADHD, but you really notice when you're when you're putting yourself down, because the child hears it. When the child hears you putting yourself down for your ADHD challenges, oh, I'm so stupid. Oh, I should have remembered. Oh, I don't believe I forgot again. They're going to hear that, and you're modeling kind of some of those negative messages inadvertently, but just notice that. And so if you notice that in yourself, correct it, and you can correct it in front of them, like, oh, wow, I just called myself stupid. And I tell you that you shouldn't be doing that, and that's not true. But I've caught myself. See, it can be really hard to do. So it can be a really powerful tool as well.
Okay. A parent asks, my child masks in school and with peers. How do I get her to stop, but also prepare her that unmasking can cause her to hear negative talk?
That's a really important question. It's kind of that balance of masking as protection for yourself, as well as being yourself. And so this is where I really encourage you to find some outside activities that your child really feels is really good and where they can be themselves. And so they can feel successful, they can be themselves, and see if you can find even one friend that's like them, that likes them, and they can be themselves with that friend. So those are some powerful things to kind of have those opportunities for unmasking, and then helping. That's where you really want to be honest with them and talk about things. Yeah, it's going to be hard. Sometimes kids can be mean and they can pick on you for things that you do. And so recognizing that and helping them say, you are just the person that you are, and you have other friends, and you don't have to respond to them. Just try to go do something else. If you feel like you need to respond, here's some ways, and problem solve some ways that you can respond, especially if there's bullying. Otherwise, the biggest message is to kind of have other places where they can find that, and just explain to them that that other kids don't necessarily understand. And when they don't understand something, they can be mean about it. And we want you to feel like you can be yourself in safe places.
Okay. My 11-year-old's confidence is faltering because he's unable to perform at school or keep up socially with peers. How should I support him?
Yes. That's a very difficult time. I find that a lot of our kids can do okay with peers until 4th or 5th grade, where the social expectations and even the school expectations tend to be a lot higher. And then when moving into middle school, even more so. So again, finding something else that they are good at and reminding them of that, and then seeing what else you can do to help with the academic piece. Do they need an extra tutor? Do they need more structure? How do you change your environment at home to support them to be able to do their homework in a quiet place and really help them feel like they can achieve better? I don't know if you need to talk to the school. Do they need an individualized education plan, really collaborating with the school? If most of this is happening with school, see if that's the best place for them. It might not be the best school location or type of school that it is. It might not work for them. Sometimes you have that possibility of changing school, sometimes you don't. But seeing what the school can do to kind of support and really collaborate with them in terms of peers, seeing if they're 11, I don't know if you're still doing play dates, but seeing if you can do play dates with kids that might be more like them, that they can have a person that is somebody that they really enjoy to spending time with. And then sometimes joining in there, if there aren't those things, joining in their interests so that you experience that with them. I had another mom I worked with who their child joined karate and she joined karate with him. And she was nowhere near as good as he was. And so she'd be like, look at this, you're teaching me how to do karate. You're doing this. So really trying to help foster that. And then letting them know, this is this transition to middle school can be a really hard time, but you will find your people, and I'm going to work with you to find your people. And summertime is a great opportunity for that if you can, depending on where you are, what are other options in the environment in terms of other camps, or is there another family member? Is there a cousin who has ADHD? Often there is a genetic component, so maybe another family member that can really take them under their wing too.
Okay. We had two questions around bullying. One parent said her child was being bullied because of his weight, and another parent said her middle schooler is moving to a new school in the fall. His social skills aren't great, and she worries that he'll be bullied. Can you perhaps address each of those?
Bullying I find it's one of the hardest things to address. When I work with families and there's bullying, it's a really tough situation. Sometimes it is, changing schools, finding another school, kind of starting afresh might be good. And then having tools for your child to know how to deal with the bullies. And often parents will want to go in and talk to the school, and then it becomes embarrassing for that child. I don't talk to them. Don't talk to them about me. Don't try to solve the problem, because that makes I'm going to be even more of a target. So it's giving them the tools to have the self-advocacy and to practice. Sometimes if there's some good social skills groups in your area, those can be really helpful to kind of practice it in real time with other kids, how to stand up for yourself. Because I think that that idea of either talking to the teacher or just ignore it and they'll stop, those are not necessarily the best ways. And it really depends on what. And if your child has a weight problem or bullying for their weight, that can really add to poor self-esteem too. And then they're going to be hearing every message like, oh, well, you should be eating more healthily. And then they start going, oh, see, you think I'm overweight too. So I think that it's watching your own language as well, and other people's language, and then seeing, how can I support them in doing something that they like to do that also can help them get stronger and help them feel more healthy and not feel like it's focused on weight, but focused on strength and health. And that could be a challenging balance. But I think giving them the strength and letting them know that it will be better, and that giving them tools of how to talk about it. And again, if there is a therapist or a social skills group that's around to kind of help with fostering that strength in themselves and that resilience.
Social skills too seem to be an issue. A woman writes about her daughter who seems to have gained what she called a frenemy this year, someone who's pretending to be her friend, but then says terrible things about her and gets her in trouble at school, and then turns around and tries to befriend her. And she wants to know how she could explain this to her child, this kind of behavior, and how to support them.
Yeah. I have a lot of kids that have these frenemies, and they come in and they talk to me about them. And I think one of the hardest things, I'm sure most of the parents know, is trying to teach your child that something is not working for them. And the children kind of have to, some of these things they have to learn on their own. So knowing you can give them the information, if there's some good books or some good ideas, that, pointing it out, if you're watching a TV show together or you're reading a book together, like, oh, like that was a situation where this happens. But then also just listening to them. So when they come in, like, oh, this person is really mean to me. Sometimes a parent might respond like, why are you friends with them? This kid is mean to you. Why are you still friends with them? And then they kind of get into defense mode. So that's, again, going back to the validation, like, oh, that, whatever, Jenny was mean to you again. That's gotta hurt. And so just kind of staying with it and not problem solving, and maybe saying like, oh, I mean, do you have other friends that are mean to you? Well, actually, no. Well, I don't know, Maggie. Maggie's always nice to me. It's like, oh, I wonder if you can hang out with Maggie more. Sounds like this is not a very good friend. And just letting it go and kind of reminding them. And at some point, hopefully they'll get to a place where they'll realize like, this is what a good friend is and this is what not a good friend is. Again, they're a social skills group. You can work with that. You can work with a therapist on that, but kind of knowing that it's not going to be right away, but it's so hard. And I mean, I'm a parent, I'm a psychologist, but I'm also a parent. Watching your child in distress, watching your child making these choices can be really hard to do. But when we often can't do it with teaching, we just have to be there to kind of keep that communication open.
We just got in a question from a parent. How do I stop my child from engaging in bullying behaviors? So this is the opposite side.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think it's a conversation with them. Are they, what's underneath the bullying? Are they bullying because, are they seen as the bully because other kids are actually being mean to them and they're responding? I have a lot of parents that I work with when a child, especially with boys, I'll say this probably happens more with boys, when kids are sometimes bigger than the other kids in their class, like they're just taller or wider than the other kids, somebody else can be being mean to them and they respond. And so they're the ones that are caught and they're seen as the bully. So first of all, finding out, are they really being the bully or are they kind of being provoked by other kids? Maybe they're being, other kids are like, oh, we know he's going to react. That's another big thing. Like we know he's going to react. So we're going to push his buttons and then they look like the bully. If they're actually bullying, figuring out what's going on underneath, what are they not feeling good about? Again, improving their self-esteem in other ways. And also letting them know, like, how can we do? Do we need to write an apology letter? What are we going to do? You might have to set a consequence. Like, maybe you don't, I'm not sure about you having a play date this weekend with this other kid because I want to make sure that that other kid is safe. So recognizing having some, sorry, I got presentation cancellation message. So those are some ideas that I would say.
Okay. How do we know as parents if a child is actually trying their best in school? We don't want to push too much. Our motto is just do your best. But at the same time, we're not sure if our son is really trying his hardest. His grades don't reflect his potential. This is becoming more of a concern. How would you respond to that?
I would see if the grades aren't reflecting, is he getting, do you have accommodations at school? They might be performing their best, but they might need more accommodations. Do they need a tutor on the outside? Is it during, I guess I would investigate more, find out what's going on. Is it that the child just is feeling like unmotivated because it's gotten hard? Often, especially I find that kids around 5th, 6th grade moving into middle school can be also even more overwhelming because there's so many, they have to change classrooms, they have to have different teachers, there's a lot of executive functioning that's being impacted, and then the hormones are coming in. So I'd investigate more to see. If you really have a question, you can always get testing, neuropsych testing done. That can be a little bit difficult. It can be expensive and it can be hard to find, but neuropsych testing can really look at, what is their potential, what's their intelligence level versus how are they achieving in school, and then see if there's some other ways and other strategies that can help them to overcome whatever challenges they're having. Or is there something else that gets in the way? Yeah.
So parents are seeking help. They say, how can we manage sibling interactions between our ADHD child and our neurotypical child, especially when the ADHD child gets very jealous of the other child because they can do more things easily?
Yes, that can be very, very hard. And that's where, when I talked about using the other people in the community, I said an older sibling. It might not be an older sibling. It might be a younger sibling. So really kind of trying to find moments where you can find things that are good, right? Catch the child with the ADHD challenges see their strengths. So really kind of, you might need to overdo it sometimes and overdo it with the ADHD child because the other child is getting a lot. If it's an older child, really trying to talk to them and say, look, we really want to make sure that your sister or brother is able to achieve. And I know you love your sister and brother. When you talk like this actually makes them feel worse. So it's a little bit of both of those things, but it's recognizing everyone's strengths. That's when it's really finding those strengths and finding the things that the ADHD child can actually do this really good. Maybe they're better at art or sports, or maybe they're better at math. And this other neurotypical child is actually having struggles in math. And just recognizing ADHD is just one part of the picture and finding the other pieces.
Okay. One parent says that they're constantly told that their child is too sensitive and that he cries in response to criticism, or if he's been told he's made a mistake or that he's not performing in the way he should, and then he becomes frustrated to the point of tears. What's the best way to support that?
If you're getting that message from the teachers, it sounds like from the school, working with them, I would really work with them and understand what might be going on, get a little bit more information, and then talking to your child. Is it the way that the particular teacher is saying that? Are they saying it in front of the whole class? Can they catch them being good? That's where kind of, these are the strategies that I've seen that are helpful. Can they, is that child feeling ashamed? Or is it just frustration tolerance because something gets hard and it's really hard for them to push through it? That's where you kind of really work on effort, right? Effort. And sometimes things are going to take a while, and you might do this at home. Like, okay, let's work on this. And when you see that frustration, you can say, I see the frustration. Why don't we take a breath? Why don't we do some, and then we can come back to it. Keep on going. I know it can be hard. And that's where the validation comes up. And then noticing when they can calm themselves down. And even if they're frustrated, this is something we do in PCIT a lot, of like, you got frustrated and you calmed down, and look, you were able to achieve what you want to achieve. I understand you're frustrated, and I know you can do it. It just, sometimes it takes a little bit more practice, and that kind of the growth mindset that we were talking about. And then seeing if the school can do something similar. If not, sometimes a therapist can be helpful, and the therapist can talk to the school separately, and find some other strategies that might help them. Do they need to be able to take a break? Like, if you see them starting to get frustrated, what's the trigger for the frustration? Do they need to take a break? Do you want to step outside? Again, it really depends on the school and their ability to do that. Sometimes they don't want to do that. So that's where the collaboration is a really big piece.
Okay, well, unfortunately, that has to be our last question because we're out of time. But Dr. Litvinov, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your expertise with our ADHD community. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.